Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Toyota counterfeit parts. We're actually not going to be talking about them, we're going to expose them. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. And without further ado, let's dig right into it. Small overview before we get started. What makes Toyotas awesome are their awesome engineering, of course, but equally their high quality parts. When Toyota makes their parts, some of the parts they'll make in-house, but most of the parts, honestly, they'll sublet to outside, vendors, third parties, other companies. However, when they do that, those outside companies are held to a very high standard, and the minute they're not up to that standard, they're out. That's just how Toyota works. So when we have counterfeit parts, what's the standard of these parts? Nothing. Zero. The company or companies that makes these counterfeit parts, they're so ashamed of their horrible quality, they don't even want to put their own name on it. I always recommend to my viewers that they use original parts when possible. But in the case of counterfeits, I'd rather you use aftermarket because at least the company that made them is not ashamed to put their own name on the box. Having said that, let's move to Exhibit A, if you would. Exhibit A. Cabin filters. Very simple filters. They filter the air coming into the cabin through the heating or the AC or the HVAC. Not much to them, right? Well, here I have two cabin filters. One of them is the beautiful original one, and one of them is a shameful counterfeit. Let's dig deeper. So, I deal with these parts every single day through my career at a dealership. I can just by looking at these two boxes tell you this one is a counterfeit because the print on the box looks atrocious. There's no other word for it. This is a high quality box, and it's just a box. This could be a little garbage bag for all we care about, but the part inside is what matters. Everybody's just going to throw the box and we're done. But even the box looks good on the original part and looks horrible on the counterfeit. Let's move further though. If you look here, this is a YZZ08 number. Now when I looked up this number in the parts catalog, this number has been superseded to YZZ20. So people will say, well, maybe this is not counterfeit, maybe this is just old stock. But the problem is, this part's not available anywhere in none of the Toyota warehouses and has been superseded for a long time. So if this is old stock, where did it come from? And why is it so readily available? I mean, did Toyota just change the number and throw all these parts to the garbage and somebody picked them out of the garbage? That doesn't sound like how things work when things are superseded. But that's okay. Benefit of the doubt, right? The box is terrible. And the biggest thing that tells you about the box, so all Toyota parts on the sticker, it'll tell you what's the country of origin. Where was this part made? And they're not trying to fool you. If it's made in somebody's backyard, in the shed, they're going to tell you it's made in somebody's backyard or the shed. In the case of this cabin filter, which is the original one, it says made in USA. Cool. In the case of our suspect filter, it says, of course, made in Japan. But then if you flip the box, there's another sticker that says made in China. So which one is it? But then people will say, okay, well, that's just a sticker, could be off. Okay, let's assume the sticker is not there. Let's open them and see how they look. Let's start with the suspect one. You're going to open the box, and the filter is in a very nice bag. Ooh, that's very fancy. Perfectly fine. Let's open the other one. Here's the other one. This is the original one. No bag. So, maybe the bag was something that got superseded, right? That's okay. But let's look at the filter itself. Right here, it has the Toyota logo, says Toyota, then says the part number, then says Denso. Then again, in case you have missed that on the box, it says made in Japan. It's made in Japan. But it's missing one thing that is crucial to any Toyota cabin filter. The up arrow. Which direction do you put this filter when you install it? Even aftermarket ones from a company that is proud to put their name on their box will have airflow, or some of them will even have up. And just an arrow to indicate when you install this filter, this direction is up. Well, our friendly filter here, nothing. Both sides, nothing. That's okay. They missed that. But the very elaborate Toyota and Toyota logo and Denso and part number, well, the original one doesn't have any of that. It just have two up, part number very small, and maybe some numbers, maybe a batch number or something, and that's it. But the biggest problem is not the print. I'm holding these two filters in my hand. This one looks like paper that I pulled out of my printer and glued together in this form, and that's it. This doesn't look like it's going to filter much. This one, however, it's heavier. It has a soft touch material on the side. It is a much higher quality. This looks like a filter. This just looks like a piece of paper. That's the worst thing. I mean, they couldn't even bother making it slightly better. But the problem is, then the biggest problem is, most people, if they see a picture of this that says Toyota, has the logo and has everything, they will believe this is the original one. Folks, that is not the case. This is a shameful copy of this, which is the original filter. Any Toyota filter you buy must have the up arrows, period. Any cabin filter, not air filter. So, having said that, some people will say, well, some cabin filters will come with a bag. That's true, but it will be a sealed bag, not an open one, and that filter will be a charcoal activated cabin filter. This is not a charcoal activated, so this is not the same. This is a shameful copy, folks. But then, this is not such a serious offender here. It's just a cabin filter. Yeah, it'll not filter very well, but it's not going to damage things. And I'm with you. Until you see Exhibit B. Exhibit B. Spark plugs. Now, spark plugs are pretty serious. They're very important for how the engine runs. So, in picture, when you look at these four spark plugs, they look similar. And that's what gets DIY mechanics, for example. You order these parts, you're not handling these parts every day to tell this is a terrible box and this is a very nicely well-made box. So you're just looking at it, it's a little crumpled, doesn't look good. Well, it might be just shipping. But that's where the similarities between these boxes really end. And it's the first thing is, and this is similar to the cabin filter, the part number is an old number. This number doesn't exist anymore. It has been superseded into another one. So where did they get this old stock? Again, this has been discontinued for a long time. And Toyota will supersede part numbers for various reasons, but some of them are improvements. That's why they take out old numbers and you can't find them anymore. That's the first red flag. The second red flag, after the box, is when you open the plug. Well, you open the plug, looks normal, has all the right numbers, has the protective sleeve, but then it's when you go digging deeper into this plug is when things start getting ugly. Let me open the original plug and we'll start comparing the two. Initially, they look identical. But then, if you look closer, first, the most important thing, these are both supposedly iridium plugs. What makes these plugs last 120,000, some cases 60,000 miles, is the iridium tip. And just by looking at these two, first, they're completely different. The counterfeit cannot be an iridium tip, because what makes iridium spark plugs very expensive is the iridium tip. It's just an expensive material to put in a plug. That's why they last so long. So it usually is another red flag when you can buy 4 spark plugs for less than a price of 1. That's a big red flag, because Toyota, they make profits, the dealership makes profit, but they're not out to rob you either. So when you can buy 4 for the price of 1, red flag. Let's dig deeper into the plug. So the washer, the compression washer right here, this one on the original plug looks very smooth. When I move my hand over it, very smooth, very well made, and solid. I come to the counterfeit. I mean, if I move my hand hard right here, and I wish you can hold these parts with your hand. When I move my hand over here, it almost wants to cut my hand. It's a very sharp edge. It looks very wrong. It's just not the right washer. It probably doesn't even belong to this spark plug. But then we move to the tip. The tip doesn't even look the same. The inside part doesn't look the same. The porcelain is not the same. Just nothing looks the same about these 2 spark plugs. Yet they are identical if you just look at them from far away. But then we come to the obvious stuff. Now both of these plugs say Denso, they say SK20R11, just the number of the plug. That's all fine. They all say the same thing. But if you really dig deeper, this one, the original one, the print is very clear, very nice, very consistent. You look at this one, the Denso mark is less sharp than the rest, and it's like fading already. I mean, this spark plug hasn't been in a car yet, and the print's already fading on it. And then you go in the back, the iridium font is wrong, and it all looks cheap and just weird. It looks wrong. You look at the original one, it's a very nice print. That's how you tell these things, is those little details. Because remember, they're trying with the counterfeit, they're trying to make this as cheap as possible, because they don't care. There's no recourse for them. They're putting it in the Toyota box, and you're on your own there. You go to Toyota if you got a problem. Which, of course, they're going to tell you, have a nice day, this is a counterfeit part. But the interesting thing about these spark plugs is, so engraved on the spark plug, on the original spark plug, let's start with that, going back to where it's made in. Engraved on the spark plug, it said, assembled in the US with foreign content. Usually that makes people kind of shy away from things. Wait a minute, it's assembled in the US, but with foreign stuff that we don't know what they are. They're not trying to lie to you. This is where this plug came from. And then if you go in the box, it says exactly the same thing. Made in the US with foreign content. That's where it's made in, that's where it's assembled, and that's where the parts came from. We're not lying to you. But then, of course, you go to the counterfeit plug. It says Denso. It's okay. Denso is a supplier of spark plug for Toyota and actually many other parts. But then it says Japan. And then the box, made in Japan. Of course, because why wouldn't it be made in Japan? I guesstimate that this thing is made in some backyard shed and then put in a horrible looking box. And I've had a viewer that sent me a picture of a spark plug that basically melted in a Sienna. And after talking to them back and forth, I believe those spark plugs were counterfeit. It was on a V6 3.5 liter engine. I've never seen a spark plug do that. Even when you go double the mileage on the original spark plugs, they don't do that. But the counterfeit spark plug did that. Having said that, this is still not the most serious one that I've seen, which we're going to talk about the most serious one, most serious offender, if you would, in Exhibit C. Moving on to Exhibit C, the last one and the most important one, oil filters. Now, you're going to replace your oil filters a lot more often than your spark plugs. So, This one is not a superseded number like the previous two. It's the same number, like for like. Let's look at the counterfeit and the original here. First problem I see, the box is not even the same size. But that's okay, maybe it's a different packaging, you know, that's okay. But the thing with Toyota oil filters, and this goes for all Toyota oil filters, they have a hologram sticker on them. If we look at this, at the hologram sticker on the counterfeit, it's there, but it's not there because this looks like a horrible copy of the hologram mark, the trademark if you would. The original one has such a beautiful sticker. To me, it looks like more expensive than the whole filter. That's your first red flag. But ooh, the red flags keep going with this one. Let's start with the box. This box of the counterfeit says, you guessed it, made in Japan. The original filter says made in Thailand. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's where it's made. Again, Toyota's being honest here. They'll say where it's made in, and that's that. Then we go to let's talk about the filter. This is an A6 filter. It fits like third generation Prius, some Corollas. It's for the 2ZR engine, for most of it, until they changed it to the spin-on filter. So that style, it's a canister filter, kind of looks like this. Filter goes in here, and this goes back in the car. Let's open these filters and see what's inside. Let's start with a counterfeit. We got a plastic thing. We'll talk about that in a second. We got two O-rings. We'll talk about that in 2 seconds. And then the filter. That's okay. Looks okay, right? Well, here's the original filter. We got the filter. You can already see the problem. But then there's only one O-ring. That's all it comes with. So what's this and why is there a second O-ring? Well, here's the problem. This is an A6 filter. This is a canister style filter. Canister looks like this. Filter goes here. Life is good. There's another oil filter from Toyota. It's called the A1. This filter, when you open it, you get the oil filter. You have two O-rings and this. This is a drain. So this is a canister from an A1. It has another cap here. You could take that cap off and install this, and then you can drain this filter so it wouldn't make a mess. And that's the idea. Most of these filters, the canister with A1, they sit like so in the car. So however you take them, they're going to make a mess. So they designed this little thing that goes in there and drains it before you take the filter out. That's all okay. But the A6 filter doesn't have that, because all the engines that the A6 filter sits in, this canister sits sideways. So you just take it off and it'll start draining at the bottom. So on the A6 canister, which is by the way smaller than this one, as you see in this picture, does not have this cap. This is just a sealed place. So going back to the counterfeit, this doesn't belong to it because this doesn't go on the canister for the A6. It goes on the one for the A1. And the second O-ring has no place to go. I think the guys in the shed, they might have mixed some stuff up. And that is very apparent when we go back to the box. We look at the box and it says engine application 2GRFE and AR. Well, the 2GRFE is your 3.5 liter V6, and the AR series engine is either 1AR 2.7 Venza Highlander or 2AR Camry RAV4 or other models. The A6 doesn't work with the V6 and the AR, but I guess the guys in the shed didn't get that memo. So All that is okay, but let's go to the filter itself, which is where things really get bad. Really get bad, folks. Here's the counterfeit filter, and here's the original filter. They're exactly the same size, but when I squeeze this filter, do you see that? I can squeeze the whole filter up. This is original, and folks, I am not making this up. I am pushing this with all my force. I'll try it with the same hand. You can't crush this guy. This guy is so well made. And this one, can you imagine when this filter gets a few thousand miles on it, covered in oil? It's just going to come apart. It's not going to filter anything because it's not really a filter. It's just a bunch of paper. And then we look at the top of these filters. This one is a very nice finish. And this one just has a little rubber thing on top, which doesn't really hold the filter. That's why you can crush it like this. And this one is so strong. And the other thing is, on the pleats of this filter, all these canister style filters, they'll have Toyota and the part number. Now, the counterfeit also does have that, but it's such a horrible font. And I'll show you in the picture right here, compared to the original one right here. I mean, that's a horrible, just a horrible copy of a shameful company that's trying to sell you these filters. Oh, and by the way, I bought 5 of these filters for almost the price of 1. That's your last red flag. Folks, this is very dangerous. This filter, you might as well keep your original filter double the time than do this. I don't encourage you to do that, by the way. But if you're going to use horrible parts like that, what's the point? Go buy an aftermarket. Go buy the worst aftermarket one. It'll be better than this junk. This is so bad. This is so bad, folks. This is unbelievable. Before we continue, let me just do something real quick. Much better. Got me some original parts over here. Before we wrap up this video, and to give you more value of this video, and appreciating you sticking out this long, I really appreciate you watching this video. Let me give you some information about parts. Toyota parts always get superseded. I'm not sure the reasons. I don't work in the parts depot, but some of these supersessions are to improve the part, to do something. Whatever the case may be, you always want to get the most updated part. Never buy an old superseded number part. And the best source to buy parts is, of course, the dealership. If the dealership sells you counterfeit parts, please let me know, or better yet, contact Toyota, because they'll go as far as shut down that dealership for selling you counterfeit parts. The other safe place, and I always tell my viewers, research your parts, look online. Here's the best place to buy your Toyota parts without having to worry about these counterfeit stuff. Parts.toyota.com. Many people are not aware that Toyota sells you parts directly. What they'll do there is you'll shop for your parts, then they'll refer you to your local dealership. They can either ship the parts to you, or you can go pick them up if you don't want to deal with the parts counter when you go in a dealership. Other places, some dealerships have their own website where they'll sell you things at a discounted price. Again, that's a good source. But be wary of these unknown sellers on some random big websites. They'll sell you these, not these, sorry, garbage ones, the counterfeit parts. Be careful. Don't risk it. If you're going to buy original parts, they're expensive, but they're well worth it. Otherwise, go buy an aftermarket part. You know who made it. They're proud of their product, proud enough to put their name on it. And I'll give you another tip on parts. You notice through Toyota parts, you're going to see the YZZ number or letters. You'll see that in the parts number. What that means is this is not a factory part. This was not the same part that was put in the car from the factory. This is a part of Toyota's value line. Now, Toyota made this to lower the costs for consumers and be able to have multiple suppliers. There's nothing wrong with these parts. Actually, Toyota made them for cost. Nothing else costs to you, so they wouldn't charge you a small fortune by getting these parts from all over the place. Now, the YZZ numbers, in some cases, you can still buy the original one, like the cabin filter, like a few things, but oil filters, you can't get the oil filter. You notice if you do your first oil change on your Toyota, especially on the spin-on filters where you can see the part number, it'll be a different part number than what you get from the dealership. That's totally normal. The YZZ parts, they're value parts, but they're actually excellent parts, and they still carry the Toyota name, and Toyota approves, of course. But I just thought I'd let you know on that, because example is brake pads. The YZZ number is actually a value line, which are cheaper, but the factory ones are still available, but they're almost double the price. Of course. Folks, keep your Toyota a Toyota by buying original parts. And if you're not going to buy original parts, buy a part from a company that's proud of it. I hope you learned something new in this video. I hope you never have to find yourself in a situation where you put a counterfeit part without knowing in your car. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're not a subscriber. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have a wonderful day.